Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to support play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which are conversations with people just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all the Porch Play Chats by visiting our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, follow us on Instagram, be a friend on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. With me on the porch today is Charlene Woodham Brickman. Hi, Charlene. She's an early childhood consultant and recess play researcher. Her company, Recess and Play, delivers professional learning for stronger social-emotional learning environments, as well as providing instructional coaching for individual sites or districts. Her company makes data-driven decisions and employs developmentally appropriate interventions, hands-on and engaging exercises, replacing technology and worksheets. I love you, love you, love you. And is a problem solver with cheap magic up her sleeve. And today, Charlene's going to talk to us about, will policy alone protect recess? It sort of builds off what Debbie Ray did last time. Not just having a law makes it work. So what are we doing?
Well, and I'm so glad to even be in the same conversation with something about Debbie Ray. Dr. Ray has done amazing work in bringing good, effective recess, quality recess to students, especially in rural communities where they tend to have that longevity with those programs. So we're very supportive of her work. Deb, in my research, I specifically set out to show that, you know, is this the answer? Because it's become such a political football. You know, is recess, you know, is it on the state, you know, the state regime? You know, does the state get to say that kids have recess? Does the district get to say this? And does it work? So in Georgia, we have recently finally passed a very weak policy that just says that recess must be scheduled daily. And my point in that is I can schedule myself to go to the dentist, but that doesn't mean I'm going. But we were glad to at least have that on the books because we fought for anything for quite some time. Some states have it, you know, have strong policy written with time increments. It must be at least 20 minutes or it must be at least 30 minutes. By the way, 20 minutes is what the CDC states as a minimum daily.
Let's just emphasize that. Minimum.
But the reality is many schools are getting far less than that, some at none at all. I was speaking to a stakeholder at a K-5 school in Gulfport, Mississippi recently, where their K-3 get a small amount. I'm not sure of those time elements, but the 5th grade specifically gets 0 recess a day because the schedule just doesn't allow it.
Oh boy.
And they get PE every day. So isn't that the same thing?
Oh my God.
No, it's not. Why are we having to explain this to educators? That's the part I don't understand. So, but there are some, on the positive side, there are some good things happening. Illinois recently passed a recess policy that includes recess as part of the minutes in the curriculum day.
Nice.
That's huge. If we could get people to consider this an instructional time, which those of us in this play world believe and know that it is.
Yes.
We like to say they're learning the hidden curriculum. Children at recess learn to negotiate, they learn to self-advocate, they learn agency. Aren't those the kind of neighbors you want when they're adults?
And in your classroom. Let's think about that.
Yeah. So So yeah, so Illinois has included as part of their curriculum and instruction minutes, which is huge. Just found out yesterday or day before yesterday, California signed a bill. The governor signed a bill saying that it's recess for all. And I haven't gotten a copy of that yet, but it's very much a piece of this big puzzle of saying, hey, we're gonna say it. We're gonna say that recess for all is important, and we're at least going to acknowledge it.
Good.
As Debbie Ray so eloquently, much better than I can, pointed out, policy doesn't fix this. Policy or codified law is not going to fix this. We've got to educate those people that, as I like to say, have their boots on the ground, the ones that are in those classrooms and on those sites making those daily decisions.
And so when we do that, and I know you've done that successfully, so which approach, if I'm a teacher in a public school or private school, doesn't matter, K through 5th grade or 6th grade, middle school, high school, any of those. And I know that recess is important, but it's not important to the administration because we have all this instructional time, 90 minutes of language arts and reading, 90 minutes of math, a specialist thrown in there. They have to go to lunch. We have to do some other, academic subjects. I don't know where I'm going to put recess in, and I don't know how many times they need it every day. And I don't know how to talk to my administrator about that. Have there been things that have worked effectively on the local level with administrators, regardless of whether the state has a policy or a law or not, that have gotten administrators to say, okay, in this school, or superintendents, which would give us more coverage, to say, in my districts, this is what you need to be implementing. And I know that when Debbie was on the porch, she was talking about how the times that they were given were included going to the playground and coming back from the playground. And if it was only 15 minutes, that took up 8 of them. And that's not recess. So any strategies that have actually worked?
Well, let me go back to that and say that I can state that firsthand. I have seen that. I was consulting in a job on a site last spring where they told me that their 5th graders got two 10-minute recesses a day, which, of course, I immediately, my antenna went up. But when I went out to actually observe that in practice, it was a 4-minute and a 6-minute by the time those transitions occurred. And there were 5 boys that walked laps the entire 4 minutes and 6 minutes of both recesses because it was a punitive consequence. So, I can personally attest to that. The things that we have found that worked is when we can get that stakeholder buy-in. And my research used theory of planned behavior to look at a group of educators that did have a written policy. Even though Georgia at that time did not have any sort of recess policy in place, this was a superintendent that did believe that it was an important piece of the day and had pushed for a recess policy for his or her district that stated that it was a minimum of 30 minutes in one time increment, that it could not be taken for punitive reasons unless it was an administrator, that teachers could not take it for, and it should be limited even then. It could not be taken for an academic at all, 0, and that all IEPs must be followed in this as well.
Okay.
So it was a very strongly worded policy at the district level, but yet personal observation, I knew that children were sitting on the wall.
Oh.
So the question was, why? Why is this occurring? And the surprise answer in this was that it wasn't experienced teachers that were taking recess. I mean, excuse me, it wasn't the new teachers that were taking recess. It was the experienced teachers that were. And their reasons were they took our recess when we were kids.
Of course, based on their experiences.
And the other one was they don't give us anything else to use as currency.
Oh my goodness.
The new teachers said, I know it's important for them. They need these breaks, and I do too.
Uh-huh.
So going back to your original question, I use theory of planned behavior, which is, why do people not do this with a written policy in place?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer that rose to the surface was, it's not easy.
No.
And from a psychological change, we've got to realize that when we show teachers that it can be easy
Mm-hmm.
and that there's a personal benefit to it, we're going to get more traction with this. In a previous school of mine, I was the assistant principal at a K-5 school and then a 4-5 school, and was told on both campuses that I could not state that teachers could not keep kids from recess, even though I did not believe that was a good practice. I couldn't override that. But they let me put a caveat in that the teachers that kept a child in from recess had to keep the student with them.
Oh, there you go.
Suddenly, no children were missing recess any longer. So how do we make it ezy for number one? And how do we show teachers truly what this does? So for example, when I deliver staff development, professional development on this, which I love getting the opportunity to do, I come in with real life examples. I want everybody to sit down for this meeting. I want you to put your phones away. I need everybody's eyes on me. It's rude when you're not looking at me. And we're going to have a break time later, but that break time is going to be reduced by the time I have to take all these other things into account.
Oh, great.
And of course, they're looking at me like, you have two heads, and why did we pay you to come here?
Right. Yeah.
But very quickly, they begin to see as I make my presentation that these are not things that would work for them. So why do we think they'll work for children?
Exactly.
You know, putting them in those children's shoes in that regard. The other thing in this that is, I find very little research on, and I'm really intrigued and want to push further into this, is that withholding recess and silent lunch
Oh boy. Yeah.
are two of the main currencies that teachers in the elementary environment use. And these are referred to as shadow discipline. And reason being, if I send the student to the office and he gets suspended or he gets, time in the office, et cetera, that office referral makes a written document that goes into the data for the school. If I keep a child from recess, either in part or whole, or if I have them assigned a silent lunch, there's no documentation of that. There's no tracking. So that shadow discipline is something that is detrimental to children from a mental health aspect. When a child is sent to school for 8 hours a day with zero discretionary time, zero, and then we wonder why they're not operating in a healthy manner in that educational environment.
So my stepson is a 5th grade teacher, and he works in a charter school and he's social studies, and he's fabulous. He plays games with them. They learn history by playing board games. They do role plays. He's fabulous, right? In his school, the motto is every minute counts. And
bell to bell.
I said to him, but even adults in a workplace get 2 15-minute breaks and 30 minutes for lunch. Why do we think children don't need that? Well, you need time for your brain you need to get up, when you're stuck at work and you can't think and you've got this big project. I close down my computer and leave, because I'm not going to be effective, and I'm just going to be more and more tired and frustrated, right? I I leave. I take my computer home with me. On the drive home, hopefully it's not too bad. I get home, I get myself a snack, I sit on the couch, and I'm more productive because I took a break. And so I don't understand why we can't see the parallel with children who are going to school for that many hours a day when they're being told what to do, where to go, and how long to stay there with no breaks. Because in the lunchroom, the cafeteria people don't want the noise. And so you can't even talk to your friends in the lunchroom. Can't talk to them on the bus because you might distract the bus driver.
Well,
What?
and on the cafeteria, whenever I try to approach that one, the pushback I get is if they don't have silent lunch at least half the time, they won't eat their food and they will leave hungry. And so then I said, okay, well, for lunch today for our professional development, I want the faculty to eat silently.
Huh.
And of course, that doesn't float.
Right. Right.
But my thing is, eating in our culture is a social event.
Yes.
And we need to model those social norms, and we need to show them how to use normal voices in a setting. In another school, I was asked to come in and observe their cafeteria and give some ideas for intervention. And one of the first things I said was, why do they have assigned seating?
Oh, God.
Not just by class, but each teacher had a chart of who could sit by who. And I'm like, this kid down here is yelling at this kid down here. Let them sit beside each other. It might just be a conversation after that.
We make our job so hard. This is a tough job anyway. So you really need to figure out ways to reduce the level of frustration and stress that you're feeling every day, and the level of frustration and stress the children are feeling every day, instead of increasing it.
Correct.
We need to so sometimes I think we just get into this tunnel, and we're following the tunnel because that's what was done to us as children, and we can't break out of the tunnel. And it's harming you physically, anxious, stress-wise. It's harming them. School becomes more of a prison instead of a place for joy and learning.
Correct.
So
my fifth grade granddaughter, she hates school, period. But part of the reason she'll tell you that she hates school is because they only get 5 minutes recess a day. They open the doors. They don't let them touch the playground equipment. Fifth grade, they tell them to run across this field, run out their energy, and then they blow the whistle and the kids line back up. And I said, prisoners in jail get more yard time than that.
Yes.
But she despises school and she calls it prison. When it was time to go back in the fall, she said, well, time to go back to jail. I hope the wardens are better this year. So, but let me, I know we're almost out of time, so I quickly want to segue here just on one thing, and that is risky play is also a huge piece of this. Mm-hmm. We are so litigious that either teachers are at the recess on their cell phones and not paying attention, or they're micromanaging kids and not letting them actually play in ways that they find to be ways to release. And so learning to recognize rough and tumble play from aggressive play, and those are stakeholders. They should know the difference if they're out there with these kids every day. So that's a huge piece of this. And the AAP policy is currently being updated. And I have the honor and privilege of sitting on that committee with a couple of other colleagues that I highly esteem, including Dr. Kathy Ramstetter. And so we're rewriting this policy, and two of the major updates to this policy will be on including the concept of risky play for the AAP, but also including recess as an unstructured break time, not just for elementary, but up through middle and high school. So encouraging pediatricians to educate the public on the need for this, that we're building time bombs when we send middle schoolers and high schoolers to school with no social break during the day, 0 discretionary time. And there's a fabulous new documentary out called Paper Tigers.
Oh,
that it's not put out by Rocco Films, was talked about the other day on NPR. But it's about Lincoln High School, and I can't tell you what state right offhand, but this new principal went in, and it was a failing school in a failing district, in a failing state, in a failing world. Okay. But this principal turned the school around by doing things that promoted social emotional learning,
Mhm.
by including breaks for students, by talking to students and listening to students, and not just having it be compliance, not just walk to the beat, not be a prison. And the graduation rate increased, kids wanted to stay and finish. It just changed the entire culture.
Mhm.
And it's such a model that it seems like common sense. When I say it out loud, it seems sometimes we say things out loud and think, well, that sounds crazy. But when I say these things out loud, and when you say these things out loud, we think, why doesn't everybody know this?
Right. Why
Um,
is it so hard for us? And I think that's the question that we ask superintendents. What are the outcomes that you're looking for? Here is how more choice, more active learning, more recess can help you meet those outcomes instead of, continuing down the path that is not working.
right, right. And post-pandemic, this is even more of an issue, as you know,
Yeah.
because there's so much emphasis from that upline to say, keep these kids in their seats because we've got to make up all that academic time that was lost.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the reality is, especially all children lost more mentally and socially than they ever lost academically in that time. But children of poverty, especially, they lost so much from a mental health perspective. And if
Mhm.
we don't go back and remediate these things by replacing adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, with positive childhood experiences, PCEs, then we are truly amping up the ever increasing need for mental health in our school system.
Absolutely. Well, Charlene, this has been wonderful. Don't go anywhere while I close this out. So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.